What can Russia offer Africa? Vladimir Putin hosted African leaders promising aids and lashed at the West. But his country is at war, abandoned and battling to survive the sanctions which was imposed to them by the US and NATO countries. How much can he deliver to these promises? This is Africa Talk. Welcome to Cool Bears. Welcome back to another episode of African Talk. African leaders went to Russia for Russia-Africa Forum, which was hosted by President Vladimir Putin. Moscow says want to bring Africa closer, but with everything that is happening in Ukraine, that's not going to be an easy task. 17 African leaders attended this summit, followed by prime ministers and representatives of different presidents of Africa. The all Africa countries were represented in Russia. The war in Ukraine, it had collapsed the food pricing all over around the world, especially in the western of Africa, who've been depending on this food. Can Vladimir Putin guarantee that is a good partner for African countries? Since African leaders decided to accept this invitation from Vladimir Putin, can African end up finding themselves in the middle of a fight between Russia and the Western? We'll get to discuss about that in a bit, but first of all, I want you to watch this report.
Russian President Vladimir Putin centre stage at an economic forum for African leaders in St. Petersburg. It's being held at a time when Russia is at war and under sanctions, and many African countries face rising food prices and shortages as a result of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Putin has promised to supply a small amount of free grain to 6 African countries.
20%.
Russia's share of the global wheat market is 20%. Ukraine's is less than 5%. This means that is Russia that is making a significant contribution to global food security.
African nations depend on grain imports from Black Sea ports, but last week Moscow withdrew from a UN-brokered deal that ensured safe passage of millions of tons of grain from Ukraine, which was helping to prevent food shortages in Africa. Analysts say this summit is an opportunity for African leaders to lobby Putin.
For the fact that African leaders accepted this invitation, them being there, it is just to make sure that Russia can be able to supply them with the food which some of the African countries, they depend on it. Secondly, this was a good opportunity for African leaders to make sure that Russia gets to consider what the 7 African leaders did last month by going to Russia and Ukraine to negotiate for peace. So this was a good opportunity for African leaders to get engaged themselves with the Russia President Vladimir Putin by telling him on how to stop the war in Ukraine. Was that all? Is this all what African leaders have to discuss with Vladimir Putin? I doubt, because this is what we get to see in the cameras. But there were too much things which was discussed in behind closed door.
But this summit is about far more than grain. Russia exported more than $16 billion worth of goods to Africa last year, and it's one of the biggest exporters of arms to the continent. Russia spends around $2 billion on African imports annually, mostly fruit and vegetables, nuts and minerals. Russia wants closer relations with Africa, but in a polarized world following the war in Ukraine, that isn't easy to achieve. Only 17 leaders attended this second Russia-Africa summit, less than half the number at the first summit in 2019.
Going to Russia and participate in a Russia-Africa summit, it is a good thing for Africa continent. African leaders going all the way to Russia and engage themselves in a very serious conversation with Vladimir Putin. It is a good thing that Africa continent needs right now. Do you know why? Because Africans need to start having new partners around the world. Africans need to start reviewing who've been there as a good partner to them and who've been there as someone who don't even respect them as Africa. Africans are tired having partners that don't respect them, partners that promise and not fulfill anything, partner that does not even show that due respect that Africa deserves with all the natural mineral resources that we have in Africa. So it is about time we start looking aside. And for the fact that these African leaders went there to negotiate with Vladimir Putin, for me, I believe it is a good thing for Africa continent. But here's one thing. We need to start negotiating very wisely in collaboration with Russia, because we don't want to change one colonizer by another. We need to start having a fair conversation, fair collaboration with Russia, trying to talk with an open heart and not trying to be like hypocrites. We need to be more sure that we are having a proper deal that will benefit the future of African youth. We need to make sure that all the papers that we get to sign with Russia, it should not be something that we'll end up regretting later on, as we already started regretting with the Western. So African leaders who are presenting Africa, African leaders who went to Russia, they should know that their signatures represent the whole Africa continent, and they should make use of it in a better way. Otherwise, they'll have to find Africans on their ways. But let us talk about African leaders who went all the way there. How do you think their relationship will look like with the Western? What do you think will be the reaction of US with its alliance, since they always want to lead Africa from far, since they always want to dominate African leaders by telling them what to do, by choosing for them who can be their friends, by choosing for them who they have to meet and who they don't have to meet, by also telling them where they will have to go and sell their mineral or not. Now that they decide to go all the way to Vladimir Putin, the man who's under sanction, the men who've been decolorated as a killer all over around the world, and these African leaders decided to go and accept his invitation. How do you think America with its alliance will have to react to this?
Many African leaders attending the summit are also cautious not to risk their ties with the West. It's a difficult balancing act during a time of global instability.
Well, I'll tell you this, African leaders are not afraid anymore. African leaders are now tired of the Western. African leaders, they don't want to be the puppet leaders anymore, because the crying of Africans, your complaints and everything, it had reached to their ears. So they are now fed up of trying to protect some people around the world who don't even deserve to be protected by them. So African leaders, they don't care anymore. That is the naked truth that we should all agree on. And that is the reason why they are going to accept this invitation, regardless of what this Western think of Vladimir Putin. Because we all know what is this war in Ukraine all about. And African leaders, they were like, no, look, go and deal with your own business. That does not concern us. As we are here to make sure that we protect Africa and to make sure that Africa, it stands on its feet. But let us ask ourselves this very simple question about all this Russia-Africa summit. What is it in it for Africa, and what is it in it for Russia? That is the capital question we need to ask ourselves. For an example, why could Russia choose to have this summit with African leaders during this time when Russia is going through all these things that we get to see in the media? So what is it in it for Russia about having these African leaders over there? First of all, we have to acknowledge that Russia is facing a serious attempt to isolate them from the international relationship with other countries. Yes, by the Western obviously, and here we're referring to America with its alliance. They're the one who've been campaigning all this time to make sure that Russia get to be isolated from the international activities. And all Russia is doing so far is to make sure that they remain in the international affairs, because they have to prove themselves to the world that we are not what the Western are trying to make us look like. And they are trying to tell also the Western that if you guys want to become our enemies, we don't care. Instead, we can still make other good friends. And this time Russia, they decided to be good friends with Africa continent. So Russia have understood that there is no other good partners that they can have right now if it is not Africa continent. Of course, we have other many countries out there that are friends to Russia. If you look in the Middle East, if you look in Asia, there is a lot of countries. Even in the South America, we still have many countries such as Venezuela, Cuba, and many more countries who are good friends to Russia. But at the moment, there is no good alliance that Russia can have right now if it is not Africa. In our previous video, we had a conversation with you. We told you what key role Africa continent play right now in the world. Each and every powerful countries out there, they want Africa as their alliance. They want to use Africa so that they will be able to stand and exist as a powerful nation out there. So without Africa mineral, without Africa gold, without Africa mining, diamond, petrol, and everything, as you know, these people, they are nothing. They won't even be able to fabricate simple guns or rockets or any things that you get to see them trending around the world. They won't be able to produce even in veins, because everything comes in the Africa. And now what happened is that Russia have understood something, that America sees Africa as a problem, while China sees Africa as a place full of opportunity for them to make money and become even a very strong, powerful nation in the world. So Russia had understood already that this is the right time to associate and pick Africa to become my alliance, because Africa, they are not that complicated. Instead, Africa only seek that due respect, that small respect that they've been lacking from all these big nations such as France, America, UK. There are so many of them, Germany, and they could not be able to respect Africans with their minerals. So Russia feel like, okay, what about if I play the same strategy that China is doing in Africa by approaching these people and trying to show them that we can play a game of win-win. You benefit, I get also to benefit. And that is what Putin is doing right now. Putin have understood that I just need to respect African leaders and try to have a proper agenda on what I can do for them and what we can discuss in this summit. Did you guys saw what he did? Besides talking to all Africans in the group, Putin had a face-to-face conversation with each and every one of African leaders. Have you seen America doing that? Have you seen France doing that? Instead, what they've been doing is to humiliate African leaders each and every time. Sometimes they'll even invite you. You expecting that you are going to meet Donald Trump or Barack Obama or Joe Biden. Once you get to the United States of America, they'll send some representative who's not even your homologue, and this is the person who will have to come and welcome you and have the conversation with you. You feel even in the way that they're talking to you that they feel like they are above you. Have you even seen on how the ambassadors get to talk to African leaders in their own countries? Have you seen how all these ambassadors behave in African continent? They are doing all these things because they believe that you are nothing, because they want to be the person who have to give you a lesson, because they believe that Africans were nothing before their eyes. And that is the reason why they keep on insisting each and every time, like telling Africans who should be their friends, what should say, who should sell your mineral to, who you should be talking to. They do all these things because they think that Africa is still the same as the one of yesterday. So Vladimir Putin have understood that if I can only offer Africans that due respect that they deserve, if I can only promise them to work with them hand to hand and to deal with them in a very respectful manner, I believe I will win them. And once I have Africa by my side, I don't think these people will be able to play with me. Now that this summit took place, what did Russia did already so that can convince these African leaders with Africans to believe that they are actually meeting the right person whom can become their partners? Russia, they started first by wiping off almost 23 billion US dollar debt to Western Africans. And here we're talking about 90% of the debt that Africans had against Russia. Russia decided to remove everything and said that, okay, guys, I know this is how much you guys were owing me, but let's forget about it. That is not something not even this your Western people can do it, because them, instead of doing that, they'll tell you that no, they need something in exchange. They'll come for your petrol, they'll come for your diamond, they'll come for your gold, they'll come for your coltan, they'll come for your natural resource mineral that you are having in your countries. They'll make sure that they'll tell you that, okay, look, you are owing us this much of money. What about if we exploit this for this certain time of period? And which they never really respect it, by the way. If you make that mistake and you allow them, you say that, okay, since we don't have much money to pay you back, you can exploit this. They'll go ahead and use you. By the time you open your eyes, it will be too late. So you see now how clever and the game that Russia with Vladimir Putin they are doing here. They make sure that all the Western African countries which had debt against Russia, those money, 23 billion US dollar, that's not a small money. It's a lot of money. Because if it was a small money, I believe those Western African countries, they would have paid long time ago. But since they never managed to pay it, which means it is a sign of showing that they could not afford it. So Russia decided to wipe off all this debt. Besides wiping off this debt that Western Africans are having against Russia, what else did the President Vladimir Putin took as action in this summit that they had in Russia recently? Of course, the men decide also to supply even more grain in Africa continent, especially in those poor African countries such as Somalia, Djibouti, and some few countries in Africa who need this grain immediately. And the men decided to supply tons and tons of this grain for free. That is not also something that any of these Western leaders will decide to do, as far I know. Putin decided also to bring even more promises that he said is looking forward to fulfill for African people. Now the question to ask ourselves here is, should we trust Vladimir Putin in his words? Should we really have faith in Vladimir Putin? Said that, wow, this is about time we have the right partner who can promise and fulfill. Well, have listened to this diplomat from Nairobi, Kenya, who had also to give his point of view on what Vladimir Putin has given as a promises.
Africa became a battleground for East and West, specifically Western countries and China and Russia on the other side. Africa is not Africa of 1970s, 1980s, or late 1990s. Africa is awake right now. They are going to balance between the power of the West and power of the Russia and China as well. When the BRICS form, Africa, they realize that multipolar system now is real. So they want to show the world, they want to balance the power of East and West. That's why Russia today is hosting more than 17 countries of Africa. I think so. This time around, Russia is very serious, like no other. To be honest with you, Russia, they are really going to assist African society. They promise this time around, they have to deliver whatever they promise at the summit. And this time they're serious to delivering what they call the promise they made. And up to now, they are willing to deliver more than 50 million tons of grains to the poorest country in Africa. They want to also invest in African society. They want, in fact, to relieve the debt of Africa, so that they want to see Russia as an equal partner, not a colonizer. If you look at the Western world, to be honest with you, for the last 60 years of African independence, what they promise only, what they're doing in Africa only, humanitarian aid and also security issues and some and cultural colonization, just imposing their cultures against the African values and cultures, and such as the gays and the lesbianism and so on and so forth. And that's exactly what Africa, they don't want it. Africa, what they want is a good governance. They don't want what they call a shady democracies. In addition to that, what Africa today is looking for is a good governance. For instance, Gulf states, there's no democracy, there's a good governance. So now the China and the Russia, they are willing to build Africa. They are in fact investing in infrastructure, service sector, industry sector, agriculture sector. So they want, this time around, they don't want lip services. Africa is awake. It's not Africa of 1970 or 1980 or 1990. Africa, they want someone who can convert his energy and commitment into results. We don't want to entertain what they call a rhetoric, speeches. Africa doesn't entertain that. Africa, they want a development. They mean business. If you mean business, come to Africa. But the issue of the Western world, just lecturing and dictating Africa is over. It's over. It's a part of the thing. They will not accept it anymore.
Did you hear that? Did you just heard what this gentleman said? This is what I've been telling you time to time, guys. Africa, it is not the same as the one that you guys used to know before. This is the new generation, and we are trying by all means to make sure that we do things in the different ways. And I like the part when he had to speak kind of like he's talking my mind, to remind Africans that, look, we have tolerated much from this Western. Because every time when they come in Africa, when they pretend to come and help Africa, it is when they come actually to loot. It is when they come to bring more fire. You remember, when someone wants to attack you very well, they need to make sure that they attack your house. They'll try to burn your house actually. They will start a fight inside your house, so that once you panic, once you start asking yourself what to save first, whether you are having your gods in the house, whether you are having your wife and your children, you kind of like, your mind have to be all over, because you need to make sure that you save everyone who are in your household. And during that time, an intruder have all the opportunity, have all the time in the world to loot you as much as they want. And this is what the Western have been doing. Whenever they come to Africa, whenever they're trying to interfere in African business, they make sure that you guys will fight among yourself, and then they'll come and suggest to you as if they are the solution. Now, give me only one country that you know in Africa. Okay, maybe if I talk about Africa, it will sound like maybe I'm exaggerating. What about if you give me one country in the world that this Western, US, or their alliance, that they have involved in this a certain country that you know, and at the end of the day they succeed to bring peace? If it is not leaving that country damaged, if it's not leaving that country in a very big trouble. We have countries such as Libya, whereby Libyans, they were living a very good life. I can even go far by saying a perfect life, because Libya, it was the only country in Africa whereby every student in the university, you are having more than 5 to 10 liters of petrol each and every day. You can go to any gas station and you fill up your petrol without anyone asking for you to pay. It is only in Libya we used to see each and every citizen, they are having free house, free water, which Muammar Gaddafi have to go and dig all the way from Pacific Oceans and bring this water to Libyans. It is only in Libya. Everyone, they will get a bursary as a student. You can go and study overseas if you want, which the government will make sure that you have everything. Now go back today in Libya. Ask Libyans if all these things are still existing. But this is the same people who've been told that no, you guys need to get rid of Muammar Gaddafi because they don't love you. You need to eliminate Muammar Gaddafi because he's going to kill all of you.
Tonight, President Obama's goal was simple: to explain to a public skeptical about the war he's launched in Libya
what we've done, what we plan to do, and why this matters to us.
It has been 10 days since Mr. Obama ordered U.S. forces into combat in Libya. Nearly 200 Tomahawk cruise missiles launched, more than 1,600 airstrikes. And so the challenge for the president: justify this war and show Americans that the U.S. role really will be brief and limited.
The United States and the world faced a choice. Gaddafi declared he would show no mercy to his own people. He compared them to rats and threatened to go door to door to inflict punishment.
It was Muammar Gaddafi, Obama said, who was the main reason for war. He was about to launch a massacre of his own people.
It was not in our national interest to let that happen. I refused to let that happen.
And so the attack began. One question has hovered over this mission: how is it in the strategic interests of the United States to go to war in Libya? Robert Gates, Obama's own Secretary of Defense, complicated matters for his boss on ABC's This Week yesterday.
Do you think Libya posed an actual or imminent threat to the United States?
No, it was not. It was not a vital national interest to the United States, but it was an interest.
You need to kill him because he's going to, you don't want to leave power, he's a dictator. They seduced Libyans. Since they were so wicked, they let go of Muammar Gaddafi. Today, they are regretting the country never been the same anymore. The power is anyone who wake up in that country can decide to become a president today and tomorrow. They take you over and they replace you back with someone else. All this because of the Western with their politics. These are the same people who comes in Africa. When they say that we are coming to Africa to install democracy, we are coming in Africa to help them with security, we are coming in Africa, they come to impose what is good for them. Do you guys still remember when China is busy talking to African nations in order for them to work together in the program of win-win? Do you still remember the campaign that the Prime Minister or Vice President of the America, who had to go all the way Africa, in Ghana, in Zambia, asking people to encouraging them to have what you guys would call a gay and lesbian marriage? When Africans need something that can build Africa, something that can make the mind of African child to be even more developed, that is not the case with them. That is not their priority. The priority that they feel is to come and make illegal things become legal in the Africa continent. Those are the kind of the pattern that Africans don't need at the moment. So it is true that I believe Russia, they don't have choice right now than to fulfill all the promises that they are taking so far, or that they've been promising to Africans, because that is the only way Africans will even continue placing their trust in Russia. And another reason that can motivate Russia to go ahead and respect all these promises is because Africans, they are the only countries that remain more loyal to Russia when it comes to this conflict between Russia and Ukraine. In the UN, it is all African countries that they don't try to vote against Russia, and at the same time they are not supporting anyone. It is only African leaders who have understood the game of this Western, and they had that courage to tell the Western that you don't need to count on us. So if there is countries that Vladimir Putin need to associate with, if there is leaders that Vladimir Putin need to have as his alliance, then that will be Africa continent, because it is the right place. Did you guys saw what is happening in Niger? Now there is a rumor saying that no, it is Russia who's supporting those military in order for them to chase out France, since this military coup took place in Niger. Why are they bringing all these allegations against Russia? Obviously because they are now all aware that Russia have big support from African nations. Vladimir Putin is well loved by many Africans. When you look among the African head of the state who went to Russia for this Russia-Africa summit, there were also some military over there. For example, like the leader for Burkina Faso, he is a military. And this young man felt welcome in Russia. He was well treated. They could not look at him because he was too young. They could not treat him in a different way because he was in the military suit or whatsoever. They treat him as the head of the state because he's the one who's representing people from Burkina Faso, which is something that will never gonna happen with this Western. Though they're the one who always motivate military coup, but yet you're never gonna see them welcoming you in your military uniform, because they're kind of like hypocrites. They don't want the world to know their mafias or what they've been doing around the world. So they like to look like they're innocent when they're the one who've been creating all this trouble that we get to see all over Africa. So tell me, this young man here, if he have to find himself in front of the Western or Russia or China, who do you think would like to collaborate with? It is more obvious that the choice, it is very clear, and there is no need for us to doubt about it. Now let us talk about the number of the attendance of the president who went all the way to Russia. 17 out of 54 countries, 17 leaders attended this Russia-Africa summit, which is too small compared to the number of African leaders who had attended the previous summit in Russia. Now, let us think together. Could it be that these African leaders who did not go to Russia, they are afraid of the Western, that they'll also get sanctions if they had to go and accept this invitation? Could it be that these African leaders, they are more loyal to France and America and UK and Germany? So since these countries, they are not in good shape with Russia, then they should not go? That is just the question we're asking ourselves. But obviously the answer is more clear, because these African leaders, perhaps they were not there physically, but they were presented. And each and every Africa country which is supposed to be presented by a leader, it was there. Even if their president were not physically in that conference, but they were well presented, whether by the prime minister, whether by the defense military ministers, whether by what, all of them, they were present over there. And there is no one who can say that he was not there. And here, please, you have to remember that usually when a president, they are not present on such a big summit as the one we see in Russia, could be that they were having something which was very important. I remember, for example, the president of Republic Democratic of Congo, President Tshisekedi, was not there. He sent someone, and he had to send this person because he was busy back in his country, whereby they were hosting some French gaming sport, what that's happening in the DRC. But later on, we saw this man, he went back all the way to Russia and he represented himself there. And that could be the case with many more African leaders who have to go there. Remember what we said in this video. The time that we are at the moment is not the time that African leaders are afraid of the Western, because that's what I noticed from their medias, saying that no, Vladimir Putin is being sabotaged by African leaders. Out of 54 leaders who were expecting to attend to this Russia-Africa summit, only 17 of them who came there, such president as Yoweri Museveni. Cyril Ramaphosa obviously is one of the big partners to Russia, and many few African leaders who went over there. Guys, like really? What do you expect from the Western to talk about Russia? Because we know these are the same people who've been doing this bad campaign about Russia time to time. They've been trying to decorate Russia as a bad country. They've been trying to decorate Vladimir Putin as a killer. These are the people who've been doing this campaign for some times now, and they make sure that no one should not believe in Russia. So if it happened that Russia, they get to succeed to convince African leaders to come to sit to the table and try to negotiate with them in that due respect, because my point here is for the fact that African leaders this time, they are being respected regardless of how small your country it is. As long as you are coming from Africa, they respect you. Vladimir Putin sit with these African leaders, having conversation with them face to face, which is not the case with the US. US, they will welcome big leaders in the world. They will welcome maybe a prime minister of Japan or UK, Germany, France. Those they are highlights. Those are the people that they usually welcome. You as African leaders go over there. They'll put you in the same bench with their representative who will have to come and talk to you. Sometimes they have to send even small boys who don't even know nothing about the history of your country as African. And they are the one who have to come and sit down and talk to you and trying to detect you and telling you what to do in your country. This is what these people have been doing, and we all know about that, isn't it? So I like the fact that African leaders went over there. And now the question is, what can them offer also to Russia in return? Because Russia had made it promises. So is there something that Russia is also asking as a favor in return? Because we know this is how politics works. Is there maybe Russia is trying to corrupt them so that whenever they go, they have to go and vote to the United Nations, they should go and vote in favor of Russia? I don't think so. So far, according to my understanding of the whole situation, there is no way or any place where it says that no, this is what Russia asked them in return. But there's something very important that Russia will get in return from Africans. It is what the world don't have today. Because Africans, we do have something that the world is looking today, and yet they don't have it. And we've been having these things for centuries and centuries. Imagine how many years these people, they've been looting from Africa. Whether it is diamond, whether it is copper, wherever it is mineral that we have, yet they are not finishing. You see, they keep on doing whatever they want to do, but yet they are not finishing. We have almost everything. So the one that's going to be our good friends, obviously, is the one who's going to benefit from this. And as I said, I will have to insist again on this one. Every African leaders will get a chance to negotiate whether with Russia or China. They just need to make sure that they negotiate it in a good way, because we don't want to leave one colonist to another one. We don't want to be anyone's slaves. The time of slave, it is over for African countries. The time of being used by other nations, it is now over. All we need, whoever who wants to deal with Africa, as long as you come with that respect, knowing the right of Africans, appreciating Africans, because you can't bite the hand that feed you, isn't it? And Africa, we do feed them. So anyone who comes and acknowledge us for who we are and give us the respect that we deserve to have as Africans, treat us in a very good way, that person for me is more than welcome. Because all we need is the best for Africa. Because we want to see Africa standing up. We want to see Africa raising up. We want to see Africa developing. We want to see Africa becoming stronger. We want to see Africa uniting. We want to see Africa having the last word to say in many things that is happening around the world. Because they never take us serious. They never see us like we're something. And it is about time. We have to make these people realize that that time is over. This is the new generation, and we're going to do things in a different ways. So if you want this message to reach many people out there, do us a favor. In return, make sure that you like this video. Because whenever you like this video, it helps us to reach even a big audience all over around the world. I want all the Western to watch this video so that they will understand that there is a new generation of Africans who are busy motivating one another in order for them to reclaim what belongs to them. A new generation who want to do things different, who want to make sure that Africa have the last word to say. So please don't get tired giving us your thumbs up. And if this is your first time to watch our video and you don't want to miss any of our video in our future, you just have to subscribe to our channel, because what we do is to educate Africans. We having serious conversation about Africa continent. We trying our best by all means to make sure that the history of Africa shall never be deleted by this Western, because that's what they are doing. Imagine they came in Africa, they did everything they could do, but yet they don't have the courage to at least teach their children in their school that everything that we're having, or this is what we have done to Africa, it's all thanks to Africa. They don't do so. Do you know why? Because they know the bad things they have done to Africans. So they don't have the courage to teach their children, because they want the history of Africa to be deleted. And that's not something that we're not gonna let it be accepted. That is something that we'll have to make sure that we stand with everything in our power to keep on reminding the history of Africa. You know, recently I was listening to the president of EFF, Julius Malema, when he said something very important about these things, this song of Kill the Boer or Kiss the Boer, whatever it is. You know, the men feel like they are trying to impose to him or trying to shut him off from not singing or saying anything about this song. And Julius Malema, he was very clear. He said something like, it's like you're asking me to forget about what had happened. There is things that did happen before 1994 in South Africa. So how come all of a sudden you are asking us to not talk about it? You are asking us to not sing about it.
There is no song, kill the Boer, kill the farmer. That's a chant. We over-explained it in court. If you have a problem with it, go to the records of the courts. And I won in court. The court said there's nothing wrong singing kill the Boer, kill the farmer. When they favor Helen Zille, we must respect them. When they don't favor Helen Zille, we must not respect them. There is a court decision that must be respected. Those who have appealed it, they must go and fight it in court. We won, and we shall sing this song in line with the court decision. The Court of South Africa, an independent court, has made a declaration on this matter and is closed. This is sponsored outrage by Helen Zille. You know, black people, there are some black, clever blacks who are told by Helen Zille to get angry. Yo, Helen is angry, now we must be angry also. They wait for a magogo with a wrinkled Botox face. How do Botox and wrinkles go into... That's the face of a devil. A devil. Botox with a wrinkled face. Pretending that she's angry. If Helen Zille was genuinely opposed to this, I don't even want to talk about that illiterate John Steenhuisen. If Helen was opposed to this for real, why didn't Helen join the case? Why didn't the DA join the case when I was taken to Equality Court? Why didn't the Freedom Front join the case if they are genuine? So I'm not going to over-explain myself. and no wrinkled botox fake face shall make me over-explain myself. I will sing this song as in when I feel like. It's not my song, it's a struggle song.
And this is their campaign that they've been doing time to time. They want to make sure that they zip our mouth. They want to make sure that Africans should not discuss about how the bright future of Africa looks like. They want Africans to not even know what they have done or what they are planning to do. That is something that we're not going to let it happen. We will make sure that we keep the history of Africa alive. So if you don't want to miss any of our videos, you know what to do by now. You just have to subscribe to our channel, follow us on our social medias, because this is what we get to discuss time to time. Guys, thank you so much for watching my video. Thank you for watching this video up to now. It was very important we get also to give you our analysis on how we see the whole situation of what took place in Russia between Vladimir Putin and African leaders, because you deserve to know the truth, because it is your right for you to be aware of what is happening around the world, especially what is happening in Africa, because it concerns Africa continent. Thank you so much again for those who always watch me time to time. Guys, I really do appreciate you with my hand in my chest, because you guys, you are so amazing. Your love, your support, I get to see you guys through the comment. You always been there. I really do appreciate for everything. So don't give up on us. Be patient with us, and stay tuned for more video to come, because we'll be talking a lot in the days to come, especially now that the BRICS summit will be taking place this month here in South Africa. So we'll be there to bring you everything and keep you on the loop. So guys, that will be all for today, but for now, continue to be yourself, be good, be kind, have respect for everyone in order for you to be respected. May God bless you all. I'll see you again very soon. Ciao, ciao.